bank.
Hello and welcome to another week of the podcast. This is our 6th week of our 6-week series, so we're going to be wrapping up talking about budgets today, and this is everything else. So we've talked about the big ones like saving, housing, transportation, medical, and food, but there's a lot left to talk about. So we've got a lot to discuss here, so why don't we just jump in? And this week I have the same guests with me. I have Adam and Brett.
Hello.
All right, so how is your guys' other category? So what about, let's just start with entertainment.
Oh, this is where I waste all my money.
This is it, right? This is your funnel category.
This is my funnel, catch all of my money and put it in the garbage money, basically. Why I have to work on previous podcasts of debt and spending. Something I've started recently doing to save money versus entertainment is I recently started playing video games. It's not something I really did throughout my life. I know a little bit whatever. Anyway, so I recently started playing video games, and something I've started noticing for entertainment value versus how much I'm paying is how long I'm going to spend invested in a game. So I'll spend $50 buy a video game, but if I can get 80 hours of entertainment out of it, that's less than $1 an hour of entertainment that I've spent. So in that retrospect, I've kept myself entertained. I've kept socialized with other people that I've met through the community of it, and I'm not spending as much money as I used to. That's good. It seems like a good solution then. What about you, Brett? Do you spend a lot on entertainment?
So typically no. So I stay locked in the closet. I never go anywhere. I only spend money on food, as we discussed prior. So really I've cut everything back to only surviving on food and then doing nothing. No, we do things with entertainment, but I treat it the same way that I treat food, in the regard of
they're one and the same. You're entertained by food.
I lavishly spend on events, right, rather than spending a little bit here and there on stuff that is mediocre or shock value entertainment or impulse buying, right? I'm conscious of those decisions. And again, I use the cheeseburger analogy, like I mentioned before. Say, is this thing worth a cheeseburger to me? And if it's not, then I go either get a cheeseburger or I save that money for later, and I keep banking it up, and then I use it for like a big purchase or, something that's going to be very entertaining.
Yeah, so I think I'm very similar to you in that regard, where, some of my friends might go out on the weekends, and I don't join in as much as I used to, because you can waste a lot of money at bars. I mean, a lot of money. And, I kind of just I create my own fun, whether it's video games, as you mentioned, Adam, or, just reading more. I come home and I read a book, or, I have friends over. I'll invite people over for dinner and drinks, because I can go buy a bottle of wine a lot cheaper than I can buy it at the restaurant or at the bar. So I'll kind of do that, and then like you said, Brett, I'll bank my money, and, I spent 2 weeks in Nicaragua 4 months ago, and I'm spending another 3 weeks over in Europe later this year. So my entertainment kind of comes from saving that money and going on trips, and then when I'm on a trip, I don't hold anything back. If there's anything I want to do or anything I want to see, I'm not afraid to spend the money then, because I know I've, earned it, I guess. I've really saved for it, and, when I was in Nicaragua, I kayaked and I surfed and I hiked a volcano and I was on the go and doing all these really cool things. And it was also nice there because our currency is so strong there that it wasn't very expensive in US dollars, but I didn't hold back and I got the full experience that I wanted to get. And, for me, I will always spend money on experiences, but I will very rarely spend money on just more possessions. So, in terms of entertainment, like going out and going shopping or something like that, I don't really do that, with my friends a lot. I don't really go out and get manicures and pedicures, which, a lot of girls do. Maybe not you guys as much. But,
I can't help how often I have to get a pedicure.
Yeah.
Mani-pedi is every Tuesday.
I mean, I know, but, you can save a lot of money in those areas, especially for girls. So I think kind of everything, Brett, something that one lesson you love, it goes back to opportunity cost. So any decision you make now and any money you spend now is going to take away a different opportunity in the future.
Right, and, I was pretty bad about it when I started my job and I was making a lot of money. I would, make sure that I was, always buying, the best Christmas presents. I would spend, a ton of time like figuring out exactly what to get for the right person and like getting that thing. And I was spending, I would earmark I was budgeting at the time, but I was budgeting thousands of dollars for Christmas presents for my friends and stuff and family. And that was just not sustainable, right? I was getting the best stuff out there, blowing everybody else away under the Christmas tree. But, it didn't matter. And it only lasted for like a couple of years. And I was just like,
It's not something you can continue in the long term.
Right. Yeah, I can't do that every year. I got you the best thing you could possibly have last year. So what else is this year? And I was just constantly challenging myself even more. But yeah, I mean, I would rather use that money for other purposes, right? And it was taking away, that was giving me enjoyment because that was my entertainment, because I was fulfilling that need of like, being the best in that category. But, I was saving up and like not going out as much and doing whatever. I mean, I was still going out because I just graduated and living on my own in Chicago and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I was going to the bars and meeting people and going out and seeing friends. But, I wasn't doing other things during the week when I wasn't doing that. And I was saving all that money when I wasn't going out to eat or, wasn't going out during the week and wasn't lavishly shopping at grocery stores because I was eating those hash browns, as we had mentioned before, one at a time for a meal. And then I was using that money and splurging it on those entertainments and those gifts.
Well, and I think a big thing to keep in mind is if you budget for it, going out isn't bad. So, there are times where I still enjoy going to a new winery and, trying their new bottle of wine or, anything along those regards. And when you plan for it and you're like, this is something I really want to do, then you should do it with no guilt, And so like for me, another thing I really enjoy is I love going to concerts. And so when, one of my favorite bands is coming to the state and I'm going to go drive over there and I'm going to see them, I have no guilt about spending, even $50 or something on a concert ticket because I know I will really enjoy that in my life. So it's not like spending money on entertainment is always bad. It's not. But I think the point is to kind of be aware of it. And if you, kind of going back to what we mentioned with, food even, where if you find yourself going to a restaurant too often, you might need to just check in with yourself. If you find yourself, every single week, multiple times a week, going out to the bars and dropping a lot of money and buying, all of your friends' drinks and stuff, and it's becoming an issue where you're not getting ahead in life because of it. You just need to make sure that's what you really want to be spending your money on.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest part for me with entertainment is how much entertainment versus how much I'm spending. So one thing, like I go out to the bar, but I'll usually have a beer, maybe two, and I'll do that twice a week, but I'll bring a book with me. I'll be there for 3-4 hours reading a book, enjoying myself. And I'm just kind of there for the social experience. I'm not out there spending $50 each time I'm going. I'm going and spending $5 on two drinks. But I'm there for a couple hours. I'm meeting friends. I'm getting my own entertainment without breaking the bank. Exactly.
And that's a very big difference than, experiences where you go out and you drop $100 at the bar.
Exactly.
And especially when we were living in Chicago, that is very, very easy to do there. So, it just becomes a different experience and you just have to keep it all in mind, and take it in stride. Mm-hmm. For me, we've ragged on coffee in multiple podcasts, but there are times in my life where I go to a coffee shop and I buy a coffee, shocker, but it's because I'm studying, and so I sit there for 4 hours, and to me it's like the Wi-Fi tax, like I'm using their Wi-Fi, so I need to buy a drink, and, I'm sitting there and I'm studying, so it's totally worth that $5 that I'm spending or whatever it might be because I'm getting something in return out of it for multiple hours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's exactly. It's one of the worst ways of entertainment to spend money to me is going to a movie theater. You get 2 hours of entertainment, you see a movie, and it costs you $10 for a ticket, $25,000 for snacks. And,
yeah.
You go there, you sit in silence. If you go with friends, you can talk about it afterwards. But for the most part, you're spending 2 hours, dark room, just not being able to engage with other people. And it just seems like such a high cost for very little return.
Absolutely. I would say I see maybe 2 movies a year in the theater. And I usually, like, when I saw Star Wars, I saw it 10 in the morning because I got matinee prices. So it was only like $5 a ticket.
It was nuts. It was the day after the thing came out. Like, Friday was booked everywhere in the country, right? And we went Saturday morning, first thing in the morning.
Wow.
Got the best seats in the house, and it was like $10.
Yeah, see, that's great.
Yeah, and
do things like that, yeah, rather than doing a date night, like you said. You're sitting in silence, like, yeah, you're seeing it Friday night on the date night, but it's not a great date experience
No.
because you're just...
Go to a park and have a great time.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the before and after is the date. The movie is like the intermission of the date.
There you go, exactly. I'd say the last 2 movies I've seen was The Fantastic Beasts for Harry Potter, and that was a date night. I know, I just ragged on it, but...
Gosh.
You know, sometimes when your partner wants to see a movie,
Yep.
you're not going to be mean and say no. But the only time before that was when the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out. Those are the last 2 movies I've seen. I slept through Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think the last movie I saw was Star Wars. I think. Which, that was like, gosh, I think that came out a year ago?
I have no idea.
I don't remember. Anyways, it's been a while, so, you know. You're right. I think that's a really valid point. You know, movie theaters could be, you know, big time suck. What about impulse spending? Do you guys find yourself that you're big on impulse spending, not big on impulse spending?
I go in spurts for the most part. It's usually like if I see something, I'll think about it and I'll hold it in the store and I'll look around. By the time it's actually come time to purchase, if I see something and I go buy it, I'll end up regretting the choice. Well, I usually do if there's something I'm interested in, I'll pick it up and I'll walk around, set it down, come back later if I'm still thinking about it days afterwards. But that's like the biggest way to stop myself is to hold the item, think, is this still something I'm feeling after an hour of thinking about it? No? Okay, it's not important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it because, you know, I always thought of impulse buying, right, as, again, somebody trying to take advantage of me because they put it there. They're deliberately trying to get me to buy it immediately without thinking about it too much and then maybe regretting the decision later, but then it's too late, right, because they've already ran away with the cash. Right, so I tend to do a lot of research on what it is that I'm going to get. I want to make sure that it's the best thing that I'm buying, not necessarily that it's the most expensive thing that I'm buying, not necessarily that it's the cheapest thing that I'm buying, but it is the right product. It does everything that I need it to do. It is the best quality thing that I can get for the right price that I want to pay for it.
Right, it's nothing you're going to have to replace because you realize it doesn't do what you need it to do and you just dropped all this money.
Right, exactly. So yeah, if I'm gonna spend even a reasonable amount of money on something, I want to make sure can I get the exact same thing for a cheaper rate on a different site or in a different store, or is there a coupon that I can apply to it or something? So I do a bunch of research on that, make sure that I'm getting the right product that I want, and then narrow down the deals on it, and you know, so by going through that process every time that I'm like doing something, you know, it takes the kind of the impulse buy need out of it. Like, oh, I need to get this right away, or this is a cool thing. I better go get this right now. I'm like, well, if this is a cool thing and somebody thought of this, like maybe there's something a little bit better than that.
Right, and you know, within a week something better will be coming out.
Right, yeah, right. Because I was bad about buying things. I was doing that process a lot. Again, when I graduated from college and I started getting this extra money, and I was getting a bunch of cool stuff to furnish my apartment and you know, toys that I could, you know, I had money to dispose on some of this stuff. I was again doing that full process, just doing it all the time. So I was like, okay, what's the coolest thing of this that I can get? What is the coolest thing I can get in the kitchen? What is the cool, best thing around like a George Foreman? Because
you did your research.
So I found like the best equivalent to a George Foreman, and you know, got that and stuff. But best computer that I could build. You know, analyzed all the parts and got all the stuff together, found the best deals. You know, and yeah, it's dangerous, but you know.
Well, and I think sometimes it's hard to walk away in the moment. So you know, for me recently, I was like, I need a new bike. So I had my bike from childhood that I literally hadn't ridden since I was like 10. And it was like a 13-inch frame. And I'm 5'8", so I needed like a 19-inch frame. So I really did need a new bike. It was a need, you know, it wasn't just a want. And so, you know, I started looking and I found this one. They were like, oh, well, it's on sale and it's a really good price. And so I started looking at it and I was like, maybe I should get this one, you know. And oh my gosh, like the sale is going to end soon. And, you know, I reminded myself, like, take a step back and there's other bikes out there. And I don't even know enough about bikes to know if this is the one I want. Well, it turns out it had features that I really didn't need for a commuter bike. And so, you know, I walked away and I didn't get the sale. You know, the sale expired. But I actually found a different bike out there that ended up being $300 cheaper, much more in my budget, you know, and in theory it's paying for itself this year with how much I'm riding it. And that was just a lot smarter. So I think, you know, sometimes when you're in the moment and you're with a salesperson, they're like, oh, well, this is the best bike or this is the best computer and it won this award and, you know, this and that. It's really easy to get caught up in that and be like, well, I should just buy it then, obviously.
Right, you feel that this definitely is the best product, but it's not the best thing for my needs.
Right. Well, and I think you have to remember that any salesman is going to tell you they have the best product. And a lot of it's marketing and advertising. And so if you can just kind of learn to be like, okay, well, I can always come back tomorrow, you know, and you know, if the sale's ending, then maybe you come back later that day. But if you can just leave for a minute and look up, you know, a few more options or look into it at all and do your own research, I think if nothing else, you're going to know that you made the right decision.
Absolutely. To piggyback on the idea of coming back tomorrow, something I always did in high school and throughout college for smaller purchases was if it felt like an impulse buy, for every $10 it was, I would wait a day. So if it was $20, I would come back 2 days later if I'm still thinking about it. If it's $50, come back 5 days later if you're still thinking about it. So it's kind of like each day you weigh out how much you're going to really be spending.
Yeah, that's a really smart way to do. And, you know, I think in a world of instant gratification, it's so easy to just want to impulse buy and have it now. But sometimes, like, especially if something is a little bit more than you're comfortable spending in that moment, but you wait, you know, 2 weeks for your next paycheck to come in, so you have a little bit more savings, then you might feel like better in the long run. And so that delayed gratification can feel even better.
Plus, then after waiting 2 weeks and you finally buy the thing you've been thinking about for 2 weeks, you're going to not be wanting anything else in this more recent time frame.
Exactly. And if you do, then maybe you realize you didn't really want that thing bad enough in the first place.
You're teaching yourself discipline.
Exactly. And that goes a long way, because at the end of the day, how much stuff can you even use? You know, if you keep buying all these things, you can only use so many things a day. So kind of paring it down and finding what really brings you happiness, and then, you know, going back to what Brett said and buying the right product for that hobby, that can just go a long way in keeping you happy. And then you don't feel like you're sacrificing anything when you know, pass up that $10 whatever, you know, that you found in the store. Cheeseburger. Yeah, the $10 cheeseburger. All right, so, you know, moving on from entertainment and impulse spending a little bit, what about pets? So do you guys have pets?
I have one cat.
You have a cat.
And I love her. She's my baby.
Yeah. But she's probably, like, also comes with financial responsibility, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I take her to the vet every 6 months. Each one of those visits around $150. Flea and tick medicine, that's $30 a month. Any other medications she needs. You know, there's always cost buildup.
Yeah.
And cats are relatively a cheaper pet. You know, you're not paying for as many toys or usually as many checkups. You know, I'll let you guys talk.
So since you have a cat and you had mentioned before that you are renting too, so is there like a pet addendum and your rent that like makes it cost more?
Yep, I pay $25 a month just to have her at my apartment.
Yeah, so that's what I've found. You know, most landlords make a lot of extra money based on, you know, in addition to rent pricing in the neighborhood, based on pet fees is a huge one, right? And like, well, other fees like moving out, you know, and damaging the place. That's other ones, right? But that's where they make a lot of their money is, yeah, sure, you can have a pet, but you're certainly paying for it and then some, right? So, yeah, that's a hidden expense a lot of people don't think about, but a lot of people rent, you know, that do want to have a companion pet. And typically a cat is a good one to have in that scenario because they're, you know, they're more manageable on their own.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not somebody who doesn't think you should have pets. I definitely just think you should think of all the financial responsibility for getting a pet, because it takes a lot of people by surprise. I have a dog, and she's a big girl. You know, she's 60 pounds, and so if we were to still be renting, there are very few places that accept dogs that large, and if they do, it is very expensive. So, you know, for us, we own our house, so we don't have anything there, but we do make our own dog food, which is, you know, pretty expensive just because she eats a lot. You know, especially compared to a cat. She probably eats like 50 times what your cat eats. But
it's also probably 100 times her size.
Yeah. But, you know, yeah, and we take her to her vet visit once a year, and she, you know, she has had some other random things happen. We were playing fetch in the park one time, and she caught the stick wrong in her mouth, and we had to take her to the emergency vet to get stitches on her tongue. So that, you know, there's a lot that can happen with dogs, and you do just have to keep that in mind. As a pet owner, it is your responsibility to be able to take care of them. So, you know, if you're not ready financially for a pet, you shouldn't just do it because you want one. And thinking about those things before you have one. And we don't regret any money that we spend on our dog because we love her, and you probably feel the same way about your cat. Oh,
absolutely.
But it definitely is something that you do need to be responsible for getting a pet, because it's not fair to them if you can't afford, you know, to get their flea and tick medication, and then they get fleas. That's not fun for any animal.
Absolutely. I think another thing with pets is something you just always have to be aware of is a lot of people will impulse purchase a pet or adopt a pet or save an animal with the idea they want to love it, they want that companionship, but then a couple months down the road they realize they don't have the time for the animal. The animal is getting attached. You have to make sure you can actually spend the time it needs and not just give it up shortly afterwards.
Absolutely. And I think especially with puppies, right? Because puppies are so cute.
You can't say no.
Everybody wants a puppy. And, we love our dog now, and she's a lot better now. But when we got her, she was 6 weeks old, and puppies bite a lot, and they chew a lot, and you need to train them, and you need to spend time with them. And I've talked to so many people that are like, oh, well, my puppy's too energetic for me, so I need to get rid of them. And I'm like, how do you not know puppies are energetic, Mm-hmm. And for us, we took her to training classes just because she was our first dog together, and we learned so much from the training classes that ended up being worth it. But yeah, I've heard stories of that all the time where
and
people...
right there's another expense you probably don't think of.
A couple $100
right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
Any furniture that gets chewed on, there's another thing you have to repair. Those all add up really quick.
Yeah.
And there are a lot
the carpet cleaner.
Things you don't think about,
Yeah. So I think we've talked about the pet stuff enough. What about, basic things like toiletries, like Kleenex, or do you guys, buy those in bulk? Do you buy them one at a time?
So I would say you have to buy this stuff in bulk. Anything you can, Sam's Club and Costco make a living on this stuff in bulk, and you should probably always buy it there rather than one-off.
Well,
you're just wasting money if you're buying a roll of paper towels one at a time, because the packaging alone for the paper towels
that's all you're actually
is half
paying
the
for.
cost of the paper towel. So
also, no one needs one ply. Don't buy that. Just get some nice toilet paper. No matter the price, you're doing yourself a favor.
Absolutely, I do agree. Absolutely,
and a service to the community.
So one thing that I want to note with a Sam's Club or Costco membership though is, a lot of times you can share them. A lot of times you can have two named adults on one account. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense necessarily to have your own, because then, if you're only going there once a year to buy toilet paper and paper towel, it's probably not worth the $40 membership fee. But for me personally, my dad was like, oh, I can add you as a named person on my account. And so when you're splitting that, it's like, okay, now we spend $20 each. It really helps reduce that cost further. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Check out, the membership levels, see if you can join up with somebody. Another great thing to buy at Sam's Club is wine. So as somebody who likes wine, finding good costs on it are important, because wine can be very expensive.
You can buy it in bulk.
You can buy it in bulk. So they have some good wine there. It's really good prices. So that's a great place to buy wine too.
You can always go straight to the distributor too. So,
Farm to table. We talked about this. Brett had a very advocated podcast on it.
That's right. True. I mean, I could just buy my own vines, I guess, and make my own wine. That would be the cheapest.
That's right. Time value of money, though.
I think there's a YouTube video on how to do that, starring this one redheaded lady. I Love Lucy. Have you heard of her?
Oh,
there's a whole video on how to make wine.
I'm gonna look it up. All right. So, do you guys have any other topics or areas that you're finding yourself spending money during the month that we haven't really talked about? I know we've covered kind of a lot of ground here, but I know there's subscription services. I don't think we've really mentioned those. I do pay for Netflix myself. Mm-hmm. We cut the cord, 2 years ago now, and haven't really looked back. So we just pay for internet, and we don't have any cable. We haven't missed it at all. We have Netflix. We do have our free month of Hulu right now, so that's been kind of exciting. But outside of that, we don't pay for anything else. We haven't jumped onto YouTube or Sling or anything like that yet.
I gotta say, I'm in the same boat. Since I moved out of my parents, I haven't had cable. Haven't missed it in the slightest, but I think that's a very popular thing with our generation, is the losing of cable and just using the Netflix, especially when you know someone who has it and you can borrow their account. You have 4 people on one, you're each paying $2.
Right, it's the same thing with the same.
Granted, don't tell Netflix that's what we're doing.
Right, it's the same thing with any of the shared service models, right? Is and their family plans or whatever for Netflix too, so we could share ours with my parents if they were getting into that. Mm-hmm. And they've talked about we pay an absurd amount for their cable bill, right? They pay almost $300 a month for their cable package. Mm-hmm. They have a cable box in every house, they have a cable box in every room of the house. They have like, they try and get the faster internet package, even though it's like garbage internet.
Mm-hmm. So one thing on the entertainment versus cable, I always use as an example. I have a bunch of tattoos, and a lot of people will ask me how much I spend on it, and I've added up, and throughout my life I've spent about $7,000, which is a lot.
Wow.
I know, right? It's sad. But I broke it down month per month since I've turned 18, and it comes down to about $70 a month that I've spent, and that's considerably less than people pay for cable even.
Yeah,
So
and that's a good point.
When you look at it that way, it's not crazy.
Yeah, so we're not saying go get $7,000 of tattoos, but...
Do it in 10 years span if you do.
He makes a good point bringing up, when you are paying for something every month like that, like cable or internet, it adds up to being a lot of money. So if you can cut the cord, or, right now if you're paying for Netflix and Hulu, try taking one out and seeing, like, can I get enough TV shows on Netflix? I know for Brett and I, we used to watch way more TV when we had cable, just because we would always have it on. And now we find ourselves talking more, or, right? How crazy.
I know, it's awful. Yeah.
Or we,
Gross.
watch different shows, or we go and do things more often instead of watching TV all the time. And so we actually have found that we enjoy life more. And as you pointed out, apparently we've saved $7,000 in a decade. So, that's a win-win situation. And, going back to, we talked about cars and stuff. Well, that's a great down payment on a car. So,
Yeah, that's a great one.
there's a lot of things there that, I think a lot of people pay for so many different monthly things like Spotify, or to get no ads. And it's like, just listen to the ads.
It's 30 seconds. Just listen to the ad.
Yeah, and a lot of times on Spotify now, if you listen to the 30 seconds, you get like an hour with uninterrupted. So it's 30 seconds of an hour. Come on. That's totally worth not paying for.
You don't even need Spotify. Just use YouTube, and just all the music is still on YouTube anyway.
See, then you gotta listen to ad after every song
many
for 15
ads.
seconds.
You're not doing it right.
You're not doing it right.
You're
doing it right.
I haven't listened to an ad on the internet in 10 years. So
What's your secret?
Ad block.
Don't keep us all waiting.
Well, now no one's gonna listen to the ad before this. So your sponsorships in the trash. You're gonna
listen to our ads.
Right. I mean, you use a targeted ad blocker on the services that you think are worth. You bypass the services that you think are worth sponsoring, right? Because people, if you're going to contribute to like a Patreon or something, or somebody out there like a YouTube star, celebrity or whatever, somebody in that field, or somebody that you're following that you think is doing something good, and you want to contribute money to them, yeah, you can turn the ad blocker off on that. But generally browsing the internet, it is highly recommended to be using an ad blocker, because most sites are targeting either obnoxious or nefarious ads toward your computer, where they're tracking your data and tracking cookies and stuff. And I know what I'm talking about, because I work in the IT field, and this is my livelihood. So that is something that most people should be considering if they're not using it today. And it's not to just like screw people over or screw over YouTube, right? That's not the point. It's because most sites are trying to take advantage of and just load stuff onto your computer that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, well, and because of the targeted ad, it does actually spark impulse spending, which you shouldn't do. So if you want something, do the research, decide that you want it. Don't let somebody tell you what you want. Figure out what you want yourself. Right?
Absolutely.
Do your own research. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So with no other categories, I think we're going to wrap this up. If there's anything that we haven't covered these last 6 weeks that you're like, oh my gosh, you need to talk about this, drop me an email and I'll be happy to talk about it in the next podcast. So with that, thank you to the guests that we've had for the past 6 weeks, Adam and Brett.
Hi.
Thanks, guys. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Money in the Bank. Make sure to subscribe to us on the iTunes or Stitcher app so that you get weekly alerts every time we post a podcast. Or if you want, you can visit my website, moneyinthebankpodcast.com. And if you want to reach out with any questions or further comments, please email me at Angie@moneyinthebankpodcast.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Money in the bank.